In the folds of mountains too steep for highways and too distant for supply chains, there is a village that has never known what it means to walk into a store. For 500 years, no shop has opened here. No merchant has set up business. No cash register has rung. No shelves have displayed goods for sale. No price tags have hung from anything. And yet, for 5 centuries, the people here have lived, have eaten, have built homes, have raised children, have survived winters and hardships and all the ordinary emergencies of human life without ever purchasing a single thing from anyone. This is not poverty. This is not deprivation. This is a different system entirely. A system so old that the modern world has almost forgotten it ever existed. A system where survival depends not on money, but on knowledge. Not on stores, but on skill. Not on purchasing, but on producing. Not on individuals competing, but on families cooperating. It is a system that seems impossible to people raised inside economies built on buying and selling, and yet it has worked here, continuously, for half a millennium. The first thing to understand about a village without stores is that nearly everything people need, they make. Not occasionally, not as a hobby, but as the fundamental structure of daily life. Clothing is not bought. It is woven. Food is not purchased. It is grown, harvested, preserved, or hunted. Tools are not acquired from a supplier. They are forged, carved, shaped by hand. Medicine is not picked up from a pharmacy. It is gathered from plants, prepared by those who learned the knowledge from elders who learned it from their own elders. This creates a life that looks completely different from the one most people know. In a modern town, you wake up and your day is shaped by access to things other people made. The food in your refrigerator came from a store. The clothes in your closet came from a factory. The fuel in your vehicle came from a station. Your entire routine depends on a supply chain that connects you to thousands of invisible laborers and producers and distributors. If that chain breaks, your life stops functioning. You cannot eat what you did not buy. You cannot wear what you did not purchase. You cannot move without fuel you acquired with money. In this village, that dependency does not exist. The supply chain is the family. The warehouse is the field, the forest, the herd. The factory is the loom in the corner of the house, the forge at the edge of the village, the hands of the person who knows how to turn wool into thread, clay into pots, iron into tools. If no merchant ever arrives, nothing changes. The village continues exactly as it has, because it has never relied on merchants in the first place. This is not to say the village produces everything. It does not. Certain materials cannot be found here. Salt, for instance, metal in some cases. Specialized tools. These things have always come from outside, but they have never come from a store. They come from trade. Direct trade. Not money exchanged for goods, but goods exchanged for goods. A farmer from this village might travel for days to reach a salt producer in a distant valley. They bring wool or cheese or dried meat. They trade it directly for the salt they need. No prices are discussed. No currency changes hands. The two parties simply assess what they have, what they need, and what feels fair. Sometimes they agree. Sometimes they do not. But when they do, both walk away with something they could not produce themselves, and the exchange is complete. This system is called barter, and for most of human history, it was the normal way people acquired what they could not make. Money is a relatively recent invention, and widespread reliance on money is even more recent. For thousands of years, human beings survived by making what they could and trading for what they could not. This village has simply never stopped. But barter is slow. It is inefficient by modern standards. It requires you to find someone who has what you need and who also needs what you have. You cannot trade wool for salt if the salt merchant does not want wool. You cannot trade grain for iron if the blacksmith has no use for grain. You must either find something else to offer, or you must find someone else to trade with. This takes time. It takes travel. It takes negotiation. And because of that, people in this village are extremely careful about what they choose to need. In a world with stores, need is easy to create. Advertising does it constantly. New products appear and suddenly people feel they require them. Convenience becomes expectation. Luxuries become necessities. The list of things people believe they cannot live without grows every year. But in a village without stores, need is constrained by reality. If you cannot make it, and you cannot trade for it, and you cannot do without it, then you have a problem. So people here learn very early to distinguish between what is truly necessary and what is simply desirable. They learn to make do. They learn to repair instead of replace. They learn to adapt what they have rather than seek what they do not. This is visible in the objects people own. Nothing here is disposable. Every tool is maintained, sharpened, oiled, repaired until it cannot be repaired anymore, and even then, the metal is salvaged and reforged into something else. Every piece of cloth is mended until the mends outnumber the original fabric. Every pot is patched. Every basket is rewoven. Every structure is rebuilt rather than abandoned. Waste in a village without stores is not just inefficient. It is existentially dangerous. If you throw something away and later discover you need it, you cannot simply go buy a replacement. You must make it again, from scratch, or do without. This creates a culture of care. People treat objects differently when they know those objects cannot be replaced by a transaction. A coat that took weeks to weave, dye, and sew is not tossed aside when it wears thin. It is patched. It is passed down. It is eventually cut apart, and the good sections are used to repair other garments. A wooden bowl carved by a grandfather is not discarded when it cracks. It is bound with cord, or lined with clay, or carefully reshaped into something smaller. Every object carries the labor that made it. And because that labor was done by someone you know, often someone in your own family, the object is treated with a respect that mass-produced goods rarely receive. Food, in particular, is managed with an intensity that people accustomed to supermarkets would find extreme. There are no grocery stores here, no refrigerated aisles, no imported produce available year-round. There is only what the land provides, and what the seasons allow, and what people were able to preserve before the cold months arrived. A family's survival through winter depends entirely on decisions made in summer and autumn. Did they plant enough grain? Did they harvest it at the right time? Did they dry it properly? Did they store it in a way that protects it from moisture and pests? Did they salt enough meat? Did they ferment enough vegetables? Did they put away enough firewood to cook and stay warm? These are not theoretical questions. They are life and death calculations, and every family makes them every year. There is no backup plan. There is no emergency food delivery. There is no store to run to when supplies run short. If you miscalculated, if the harvest failed, if the weather turned early, if the storage went wrong, you go hungry. Or you ask your neighbors for help, and you hope they have enough to share, and you remember that you now owe them. And that debt will be repaid in labor or food or assistance the next time they need it. This system of mutual debt is the second economy operating in this village. The visible economy is barter, goods traded for goods. The invisible economy is reciprocity, help given with the expectation that help will someday be returned. This operates mostly without accounting, without tallies, without written agreements. It is a social memory system. Everyone knows who helped them build their house, and they know they owe that labor back. Everyone remembers who shared food during a hard winter, and they know that when the next hard winter comes, they will be expected to share in return. The entire village operates on a web of unspoken obligations, built up over lifetimes and passed down across generations. This works because everyone stays. In a community where people move frequently, reciprocal debt would be impossible to maintain. You help someone build a barn, and next year they move away, and your labor is never repaid. But in a village where families have lived in the same houses for centuries, where leaving is rare and returning is expected, reciprocal debt is as reliable as currency. You know the person you help today will still be here in 10 years when you need help. You know their children will still be here in 30 years when your children need help. The system depends on continuity, and this village has continuity in abundance. But it also has limits. The reason this system works is the same reason it cannot grow. A reciprocal economy depends on knowing everyone. You cannot maintain unspoken debts with strangers. You cannot trust people you have never met to remember that you once helped them. In a small village, everyone knows everyone. Everyone knows who owes whom, who helped whom, who can be relied on and who cannot. But as soon as a community grows beyond the size where everyone knows everyone, that system breaks down. Memory fails. Trust weakens. Strangers appear who have no history with the community and no reason to honor its unspoken obligations. That is why this village has remained small, not by law, not by choice, but by the structural logic of the economy that sustains it. Growth would destroy the trust that makes survival possible. So the village has stayed roughly the same size for 500 years, not because people are forced to stay, but because the system only works if they do. Children born here grow into this system naturally. They do not learn economics in the way modern children do. They do not learn about money, prices, profit, or markets. Instead, they learn which plants are edible and which are poisonous. They learn when to plant and when to harvest. They learn how to card wool, how to spin thread, how to weave cloth. They learn which woods burn hot and which burn slow. They learn how to read weather, how to judge soil, how to butcher an animal, how to preserve meat. They learn by watching their parents, and then by helping, and then by doing. By the time they are teenagers, they possess skills that took their ancestors thousands of years to develop. And they possess them not as abstract knowledge, but as lived capability. A girl of 14 here can look at a sheep and know whether it is healthy or sick, whether it is ready to be sheared, whether its wool will be coarse or fine. She can shear it, clean the wool, card it, spin it into thread, dye it with plants she gathered herself, and weave it into fabric on a loom her grandfather built. She can then cut and sew that fabric into a garment her family will wear for years. She does not consider this remarkable. It is simply what people do. It is what her mother did, and her grandmother, and every woman in her family as far back as memory reaches. A boy of 16 can take a piece of raw iron, heat it in a forge, hammer it into shape, temper it, sharpen it, and turn it into a knife that will last a lifetime. He can fell a tree, split it into planks, dry it, plane it, join it, and build furniture without a single nail. He can track animals through the forest, kill them cleanly, butcher them efficiently, and waste nothing. These are not hobbies. These are not skills learned for pride or achievement. They are survival skills, and they are taught with the seriousness survival demands. But this system is fragile in ways that monetary economies are not. In a modern economy, if one farmer fails, another farmer's surplus fills the gap. If one factory closes, another takes its orders. The system is large enough and diverse enough to absorb individual failures without collapsing. But in a village, this small, individual failures matter. If the blacksmith dies before teaching his son, the village loses the ability to make and repair metal tools. If the last person who knows how to treat a particular illness dies, that knowledge vanishes. If a harvest fails and no one has surplus to share, people go hungry together. That is why knowledge here is treated as communal property. Skills are not hoarded. Techniques are not kept secret. If someone knows how to do something essential, they are expected to teach it. and the community is expected to make sure someone learns. This is not altruism. It is self-preservation. A skill that exists in only one person is a skill one accident away from extinction. So when a child shows aptitude, they are taught. When an elder grows old, they pass their knowledge to whoever will take it seriously. The survival of the village depends on the preservation and distribution of knowledge, and everyone understands that. But even with that understanding, knowledge is being lost. Not all at once, not catastrophically, but steadily, quietly, as the generations turn and fewer young people choose to learn the old skills. Some leave the village for towns where survival does not require mastering 50 different traditional techniques. Some stay, but do not have the patience or interest to learn crafts that take years to master. Some learn part of what their parents knew, but not all of it. And so, slowly, the total body of knowledge held by the village is shrinking. There are plants that were once harvested for medicine that no one gathers anymore because the one person who knew how to prepare them is dead. There are weaving patterns that existed for centuries that are no longer made because the woman who knew them had no daughter interested in learning. There are songs that were sung at specific times of year that are now only half remembered. There are stories that explained why certain things were done in certain ways that have been forgotten, and now people do those things without understanding why, or worse, stop doing them because the reason has been lost. This is the inevitable cost of an oral culture. Knowledge that is not written down depends entirely on human memory and human transmission. As long as every generation learns from the previous one, the knowledge survives. But the moment that chain breaks, the knowledge dies. And in a world where young people have other options, where towns offer different kinds of lives, where money can replace skill, that chain is breaking more and more often. The elders are aware of this. They can see it happening. They can feel the weight of knowledge they carry that no one younger seems interested in receiving. They teach when they can, but teaching requires willing students, and fewer students are willing. Some try to write things down, but many of these skills are not easily captured in words. How do you write down the feel of clay that is ready to throw? How do you describe the sound of a blade being sharpened to the correct angle? How do you document the smell of bread dough that has risen exactly enough? These are things learned through repetition, through correction, through years of practice under the eye of someone who already knows. They cannot be preserved in a book. And yet, for now, the village continues. Food is still grown, cloth is still woven, tools are still made, houses are still built. The system still works because enough people still know how to make it work. But everyone can feel the thinning. Everyone can sense that the margin for error is narrowing. Every time someone with essential knowledge dies, the village becomes slightly more fragile. Every time a young person leaves, the labor pool shrinks. Every time a skill is forgotten, the community loses one more thread in the web of capabilities that keeps it alive. The question no one asks aloud, but everyone thinks about, is how long this can continue. How many more generations can the village survive without stores, without money, without connection to the systems that sustain everyone else? Is this the last generation that will live entirely this way? Or the second to last? Or will the village find a way to adapt, to hold on to the essential knowledge while allowing some modern elements to enter? There are no clear answers. But there is one thing that remains undeniable. For 500 years, this village has survived without a single store, without money, without markets, without the entire infrastructure that the modern world considers essential to human life. It has survived through skill, through cooperation, through knowledge passed from hand to hand and generation to generation. It has survived because people here learned not to need what they could not make, and learned to make nearly everything they needed. That is not a small achievement. That is not a relic of a primitive past. That is a fully functional alternative economic system, operating continuously, proving every single day that human beings can live, and live well, without buying and selling, without currency, without stores. The modern world looks at a village like this and sees absence. No store, no money, no products. But the people who live here see something different. They see presence, the presence of capability, the presence of knowledge, the presence of relationships built on mutual need and mutual care. They see a life where survival is not about what you can afford, but about what you can do, and who you can rely on. And for 500 years, that has been enough. Whether it will be enough for the next 500 is a question only time will answer. But for now, in this moment, the village stands. The fields are tended, the animals are kept, the looms are threaded, the forges are hot, the skills are practiced. The knowledge is held, carefully, preciously, by the people who understand that if they let it go, it will not return. And so they hold on. Not out of stubbornness, not out of rejection of the modern world, but because this is what they know. This is what their ancestors knew. This is what works here, in this place, on this mountain, in this life that has never needed a store and has never missed one.